Welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Guild. The Tabletop Gaming Guild is all about the experiences and memories that playing games with friends and families can create. With our hosts, Nathan Wilson and
James Wilson.
And our guest host,
Dan Regowitz.
And we'll be talking about our most disliked games.
Well, I'm not just here to talk about disliked games. I have brought a healthy dose of well-deserved rage.
There you go. Board game gripes. So, Dan, what grinds your gears?
Sid Meier's Civilization, the board game. I'm talking about the 2010 version from Fantasy Flight. Personally, I've played a lot of Civ and Civ-like games on the computer. We had not one, but two bad experiences with the game, which sort of soured my palate on it. The first game, somebody won off military victory by eliminating me, so that might have something to do with it.
Oh, player elimination after a 2-hour game.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The game's over once any player is eliminated like this.
Oh, okay.
But the way it happened was awkward because player A attacked me, and then my army was weakened, and then a little while later, player B attacked me, and I lost my capital, and the game was over. The second time we played it was not too much better. We were all peaceful in that game. We used military as basically a way to hurt our opponents if we felt they were moving too fast for our chosen win conditions. But it was a long grind to get culture, tech, and economy are the three other win conditions. We were all doing different ones, but I think tech eventually won, but it was a long grind to get there and sort of left an empty feeling with all of us, especially after the 4-ish hours it took.
It was also on my list of things to talk about.
What? A crossover? Well, bam!
Already.
I actually forgot about the game. I did hate it, though. The rules were really fiddly, and I had to go through the rulebook a couple goes before I could really get it. And then the game, I didn't even think the turns were all that exciting in a Civilization game.
I had to read through the rules 3 or 4 times. Then I had to teach through the rules 2 or 3 times, and then we could actually play it. And there was misprints on some of the cards, so it made it even more confusing. It took us almost a week just to get this played.
The first time we played it was, of course, the learning game. So we were learning the game as we played it, and I don't think we got anything wrong. I think it actually does a fairly good job of being a Civ game. I just don't want to spend that much time at the table and be eliminated or feel like nothing happened.
They balance it better in later prints. I know in the early prints there was definitely a heavy focus on the tech. It was really a lot easier to win by a tech victory, but it was a lot less fun than a military victory.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and go over one that, as a prerequisite, I don't like any type of social deduction game. I just haven't found one that I actually like. A couple of them came close to me actually liking them, but one of them is just the worst for me, and that is Coup.
Oh my god, I love Coup.
Basically, it's a small card game where each player has 2 cards, and each of these cards have a roll on them. You can have duplicate rolls or whatever, but on your turn, you pick a roll and you do a certain action. You don't actually have to have that roll to do the action. And what you're trying to do is either pretend you're bluffing or pretend you're not bluffing. Because if another player challenges you and you are right, they lose one of their cards. If they're wrong, you lose one of your cards. And there's also things in there like assassinations you can do, and you can also do a coup if you have credits, enough of which is like, I think, 7 credits. But the game goes pretty fast. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to play. It's loved by my daughters and all their friends, and I don't like it. I actually think the best strategy of the game is never look at your cards ever. You don't know if you're right, so you're not bluffing, you're not lying, you have no idea. They have no idea whether you're right or not because you didn't even look at your card.
Doesn't Cuba have a mechanic where you can look at the beginning game and you're switching around cards throughout the game, so you may not actually know what your role is?
There's a lot of social deduction games like that. I don't know Cuba, but also Werewolf, you switch around your roles and stuff, so you don't have no clue what you are at the end of that. Also, I don't like that game, but Q just especially I hate. I know Dan likes that game, so you want to defend Coup?
No, this is your pedestal to cry on, so I'll let you.
Those things are good for party games. I'm not really into party games at all, or social deduction games are probably the most things that I hate, mainly because you have to look at people. So that is my unfortunate dislike game.
Yeah, I have another one that's probably going to be a crossover, and that's First Martians. First Martians is when I was really hoping would be a good game. I love the theme, trying to survive and keep your colony working and keep everything repaired in good condition. However, this actually won an award for having the worst rulebooks ever written. It was so incomprehensible, and every time you take an action, you're looking into this rulebook. They made an app to try to make that better, but the app didn't work. For example, when you start up the game, you're supposed to pick how many players are playing, and then it's supposed to change the setup based on the player count. Except it didn't. It still gives you the 4-player setup, and that's not how you're supposed to play the game. So the app is actually setting up the game incorrectly for you.
First Martian is a game that I really wanted to like, and I heard that they revamped the rulebook, and there's a lot of fan-made stuff for it, and the app has been fixed. It had all the makings of a great game, but really, really bad rulebook. Also, the gameplay was very mundane. Mm-hmm. It was best at one player. It is definitely an example of a game that could be very great.
Oh, yeah.
That is solo. Having multiple players there just means that they get really boring rolls. There's just repetitive tasks that have to be done, so one guy is going to be the guy that repairs the rover every single turn. That's all you do for 2 hours is repair a rover. At the $14 price level, I think it is right now, it's probably worth it. Even though I also dislike playing the game mainly because of the rulebook. The app was really bad. It killed our session in the middle of it.
It's on a very, very short list of games that I couldn't make it through the whole game. We actually gave up on this game 3/4 of the way through and never picked it up again. And I don't do that normally.
If there's any better anti-recommendation than quitting the game early, I do not know what it is.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I like Ignacy Trzewiczek a lot. I was hoping he would get better at rulebooks after Robinson Crusoe, but it definitely First Martian was super horribly worse. There's rules that come up almost instantaneously, super hard to find. You have no idea what's happening. Some of them I actually had to go on BGG to figure out what the rule is on the first turn of the game. Never had that problem with Robinson Crusoe, though. Dan played Robinson Crusoe.
It is a previous own for me. I eventually got rid of it because, man, it was that game hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ignacy Trzewiczek said that if you're winning the game, you're not playing it correctly.
We managed to win the first scenario a couple times, and then we decided to move to scenario 2, and it was like, oh man, it's going back to square one, and we just didn't want to push through the rest of the scenarios, I think.
I don't think we've made it past the first scenario winning at all.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever won that. It's a good example of a game that I like, but I don't enjoy, because it just can be so frustrating and difficult.
I accidentally traded gripes on Crusoe. I didn't mean to do that one. I actually like that game.
My next game is actually also from Fantasy Flight Games, and it is the Fallout game. Of course, it's a thematic adventure game. By the way, it uses a system of quest cards that are thoroughly awesome, and they were implemented in the new Arkham Horror version with slight tweaks in a much better way. And a lot of people had problems with the end game and the way that victory point cards work. So there are these agenda cards that are worth victory points. You can only hold up to 4, so if you would have to draw a 5th, you have to discard one of the ones that's already in your hand. Each card is automatically worth 1, but it can be worth more if the right conditions apply. So the cards come in 2 flavors. There's adventuring objectives like reveal all hexes on the map, which are worth 3 if you do them. And then the faction cards, which are worth victory based on the difference between the 2 tokens on a special faction board. There are always exactly 2 factions in all the scenarios in the game. Now, this special faction board is only 7 spaces long. And if a token moves to last space, the game is over. And if no player has the requisite BP to declare victory at that point, everyone loses.
That sounds very odd. That game looked like it was really good with a thematic end. Did it at least deliver on the theme?
It definitely delivered on theme. You felt like you were adventuring in the Fallout universe. The ending was just a total flop. Just as an example, I think a 3-player game, you need to have 9 victory points to declare victory. If you get that before that last token hits the end space on the board, the game just ends immediately. But we never had a game of Fallout that didn't end with everyone losing because, if the game is trying to close and you're not winning, you're incentivized to tank it for everyone else.
I think that's the biggest problem with those semi-co-op games where like one person wins. As soon as they know they're not going to win, they're just like, well, I'm not letting you win.
Yeah, at least that's the way it was for me personally. I would look at the board and be like, I think he's getting close. Am I gonna be able to get there? No, I'm not. So
I don't think it's good game design to allow that to happen.
I think it might be inappropriate in a really like cutthroaty setting. Like if you did a game with gangsters, that would make sense.
And it was short, maybe.
Shorter than Fallout for sure.
Yeah.
That game was at least 2 hours long.
Well, Cutthroat Caverns is one I think that does that fairly well. It's a short game. It's lighthearted. The whole idea is you have to decide when to stop cooperating. So it's like a 30-minute game where at the end you're trying to betray each other and make sure the other person doesn't get too many points. I have a really obscure one to talk about called Kahlua.
Oh, yeah, I know Kahlua.
This one really did poorly in sales, largely because of the theme, but the game itself was also pretty bad. Now, the theme of the game is you are a god and you have worshippers and you want to increase your worship to you while destroying the worshippers of other gods. So you're constantly throwing disasters out and trying to kill people. And the more disasters happen, the more people tend to pray, and you're doing well by killing other people's worshippers, and losing your own worshippers and sacrificing your own worshippers actually can help you too. So it's a really kind of dark take on religion for sure, and a lot of people were offended by that. But also the game itself, it's just a really over-the-top take that game where there's really no choices. You draw a hand of 5 cards, I believe, and your options are either destroy somebody or do something that marginally helps you.
What was the end condition of that game again? Do you remember?
Despite the theme, the end condition was to get a certain amount of happiness.
Yeah, but I found, and then I gave it away to a friend, and he found that the game could never end.
Yeah.
It could go on infinitely.
Oh, yeah. You just keep knocking each other's down.
They played it for 3 hours straight and gave up.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's a horrible game. I'm going to go ahead and talk about a game that I super hate, that people would probably like. And I know Nathan likes it, so I'll at least have him yelling at me.
I'm getting ready.
I don't like real-time games.
Uh-huh.
But I also don't like real-time games that are cooperative. I don't like cooperative real-time games where you can't talk.
Oh,
And the game that I super hate
I like this game.
is Magic Maze. It even has a horrible theme. In this theme, you're a mage, a warrior, an elf, and a dwarf. You've been stripped of all your belongings because apparently you're a bad hero. So what do you decide to do? You decide to rob the Magic Maze shopping mall. Basically, that's where the theme ends. You just have colors at that point. So you have to get X colors and escape. And you would think that you have a mage, you have some sort of asymmetric power. No, you just have random tile that tells you a direction that you can generally travel in. And you have a pawn on the board. So each of you guys can control this pawn whenever you want. There's no like turns or anything. You just do whatever. And the only way you can communicate is this oversized pawn. And you can smack it on the board or whatever. But you can't indicate like exactly what you want. You can just hit it on the board to state there's something you should be doing while you're staring daggers at this person. So most of the time, someone is just like slamming the pawn into the board, gouging my table. That's basically all it ends up with. Everyone's fighting to move this pawn back and forth. It just, So Nathan, what part of that game sounds appealing?
I give you the theme. It makes absolutely no sense.
There is no theme. There's absolutely no theme. They said it's Magic Maze, and they have like cartoon characters of like a mage, a knight, and it has nothing to do with anything. It's just orange, red, blue, and whatever yellow. That's what it is.
It's a party game with a campaign mode, essentially. You're unlocking things as you solve each maze. Puzzles you can put in. You do eventually, actually pretty quickly, unlock something that'll allow you to talk briefly. And that makes it a lot easier once you can do that, but you can't move while you're talking. So you have to talk quickly and then start moving before you start running out of time.
Well, as a caveat, my daughters love the game. So you'll find that a lot of the games my daughters love, I don't like.
You can also see this is really, really group specific. If you have people that have any sort of temperament, this game is not going to work.
Dan, have you ever played this game called Magic Maze? Actually, game's a strong word. Have you ever played this activity called Magic Maze?
Sounds like a winner to me.
That's 2-1. You lost.
Okay, let's go on.
So, Dan, what's a game you dislike?
So I'll talk about Elder Sign, strangely also by Fantasy Flight. They've got a couple on my list. Maybe I've got their number, but I also own a couple of theirs, so maybe it's just a touch and go thing. So Elder Sign is effectively a push your luck dice roller. You're trying to roll dice to match certain symbols on the cards that are in the center of the table. If you match the symbols in the cards, you complete that card and you get some resources for your trouble. If you fail, bad stuff happens, like you lose health or sanity, or more challenges are added to the table. For the record, we've never won this game. I personally found it impossible to complete any of the cards, except perhaps some of the easiest ones, maybe the easiest 10%, without spending some kind of resource that you started with. So ultimately, you would spend a resource. Either you would succeed, so you get some other resource back, which is just a trade. You're not netting any value here. Or you would fail, and you would spend a resource and a turn doing nothing.
That sounds awesome. Maybe it's thematically on purpose since it's H.P. Lovecraft style game.
If it is, then they got it, I guess.
See? Thematically perfect. Also a horrible game.
I thought it was passable, but not great.
Why do you like all these horrible games?
I don't remember it being that hard, but then again, I played it a while ago, and I don't remember it that well.
Glad we have Dan here. At least he has some taste. So Nathan, what is the game you dislike? Oh, by the way, we're only talking about modern games, so there's no talk of Monopoly or Sorry or any of that junk. So go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, so
as he talks about a non-modern game.
Well, actually, I was going to talk about a game that I hesitated to put on this list because I actually have not played it. I got so frustrated before I even got it to the table. So I don't know if it's a good game or not, but that's Command & Colors Napoleonic. And the reason why is you have a massive 5-pound bag of blocks that you have to sticker. So you have hundreds of stickers you have to put on. And I figure it's okay, this is going to take me 3-4 hours to do the stickers to be able to play the game. And if I make a mistake, I've ruined the game.
I'll tell you what, I love that game. I don't own that game. You can bring it and I will sticker it for you and we'll play it.
Okay, then it may not be on this list anymore.
It's an awesome game. Command & Colors, by the way, basically has the lane card strategy where you have different cards in your hand that dictate what battlefield goes. So you have left, right, center. It's just an awesome game. Command & Color Ancients, I think, was before it. Pretty similar to that one, too.
Yeah, about the same time.
It is a really good game. I understand the wood blocks and the stickers. There's a lot. The copy I didn't play, I didn't sticker, but I know a lot of people hate doing that.
Full disclosure, I have board game neuroticism, and I love punching out bits and sleeving cards. And
Me too! I like doing that more than playing the game sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
That is my number one thing. I just get out all those cards. I organize the game. Oh my god, it's so much fun.
You two are weird.
It's true, though. I just love doing that. It's great. It's cathartic, It's just awesome.
I pulled out all these components and put it right back.
This is my number one hated game of all time. I dislike it. I will never play it. If anyone brings it up to me and pays me, it depends on how much. But I probably won't play it. I know a lot of people like it too, but I just, no. So first off, again, hate real time. Just hate it. I hate social games. I like a good old game that has some player interaction. It's generally a Euro, so you're pretty much doing your own thing. But anyway, that game is Captain Sonar. I hate Captain Sonar. I hate everything about it. I hate that I have a team of 3 other people. I hate there's another team of 4 people. Captain Sonar basically is a game where each person has a task that they have to take. So there's a captain, there's a sonar guy, there's the guy that's in charge of weapons, and then there's a guy in charge of the ship's systems. And it's real time, so on your turn, the captain's yelling things out, and whenever you go a direction, you have to mark off a thing on the engine. The guy that's mapping has to mark the directions you go to keep track. And the sonar guy is listening to the other team yell out their directions. And there's 2 game modes. You can do turn-based or the real-time. And the problem is, I just hate it. That's basically the game. The real-time's super bad because they just start screaming really fast. No rules on being comprehensible. So they'll just say left, right, 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 left. And then all the other guy has to say is yep, 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 yep. And then they can go ready, stop. And then everyone has to stop and then they just guess and fire. So the problem with the game is you can line up your weapons and stuff by going certain directions. So they can just yell out things really quick and then fire. Yell out things and really quick and fire. Yeah, real time? No. Cooperative real time? No. Game with a whole bunch of magic erase markers? No. I don't know if either of you played Captain Sonar.
I have not.
I have not either. It sounds like it's in the same ballpark as, what was it, Dice Cadets?
Space Cadets?
Space Cadets.
I haven't played Space Cadets, but I think Space Cadets is just time cooperative.
I think you can play it 2 teams. That would take a lot of people to fill all the stations. 2 full teams would be like 8 people.
Captain Sonar is pretty much step up a battleship. I do know that a lot of people enjoy Captain Sonar. So in the right setting, I think it does really well. I like stressful games, but I don't like stressful timed games.
There's a couple time games I like, but for the most part, I don't like real-time games either. And I played one called Space Sheep.
I played that game too. It's horrible, yes.
Yeah, it's a Star Wars parody with sheep.
I like how it says this game is a parody, like all over it in big text. It's obviously a parody. Why did you just ruin the art of the cover with saying it's a parody like 15 times? Like, you're afraid that Sheep Han Solo is going to get you, like, sued?
It's a math puzzle game, basically, that's timed. Which, without the time element, it's not too bad. Not very fun, but not too difficult. You're drawing cards to move pieces 2 spaces to the right or to the left, and they get more complicated. It's like 1 space left of the place of the fewest meeples or something along that line. But then you also have the wolf that randomly comes up in it and disrupts everything. So it's like a timed game with math with constant disruption to screw up everything you're trying to do. And it's cooperative.
Yeah, it's just a horrible game, but unlike my picks where people actually like them, BGG says that's a horrible game too, so people probably don't like that game.
Yeah.
So Dan, do you have a beloved game that you dislike?
A beloved game that I dislike. I think that was Fallout. I love Fallout, but I hate the game. You've been hating on a lot of genres, so I'll go with a genre. I dislike and generally avoid games with a heavy dexterity element, or games that require speed and or precision. The example game that I came up for this category that I've actually played, I think twice, is called Jungle Speed. This came out in 97, I believe. So Jungle Speed is basically just a deck of cards. The cards are large. They're square cards that are like 3 or 4 inches on the side. And then there's this plastic totem that sits in the middle of the table. Somebody flips cards, and depending upon what card flips over, you've got to do certain things like grab the cards in the middle of the table or grab the totem. And everyone is doing this simultaneously as fast as possible. This game does not work because it's also a pattern recognition game. So instead of there being like instructions printed on the card or nice clear text, it's just a symbol. So you got to know that a 4-pointed spiral means X, and then a 6-pointed anti-spiral means Y.
Yeah, that game looks horrible. Yeah, and it looks like it has the worst art ever on it, too.
Most of the symbols are actually pretty clear at first glance, but like tying them to a mechanical action is something that has to be learned and is not going to be learned quick by anyone.
I also dislike dexterity games mainly because I'm bad at it, but...
Oh, me too.
Yeah, I'm super horrible at them. But have you ever played Ice Cool?
I am not familiar with that one.
That game was actually pretty fun. I'll have to bring that around to have you try it. I'm definitely horrible at it, but for some reason I like that one, and I also liked Rhino Hero. In Ice Cool, you have to flick a little penguin around the board.
Now I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen this box, yes.
And you have to collect fish. It's actually not too bad. Some people are phenomenal at it. They can do a trick shot where it just goes around the entire board. I'm like, I don't know how you do that. I just try to get it through a door. But it's a lot of fun. I also like Rhino Hero, sort of like Jenga, but reverse. You have folded cards and you have to stack them on top of each other. And the platform dictates what the next person has to do. That game's fun because it only takes a couple minutes.
I got a couple obscure ones. I got a game called Voodoo Mania. Now, this is a simple card game that's trying to go as fast as you can because when somebody throws down a card, there'll be a symbol missing. And you have to find on your cards that symbol and color that's missing and then try to get that down before somebody else does. I really just don't like this because I am super bad at this. I can handle, like, if I'm looking for a specific symbol, but trying to figure out which symbol is not there and then find that extra step just throws me, and I can't do this at all.
Depending upon what the symbols look like, that sounds like it suffers from the same problem as the Jungle Speed game I just mentioned.
Yeah, I haven't played Jungle Speed, but I looked at it on BGG, and that looks horrible. I don't know. It's just really bad. It looks worse than Race for the Galaxy, which I do love, but also has super horrible symbols in it.
Yeah.
In Race of the Galaxy, at least you have time to grok what's going on.
Yeah, that's true. Race for the Galaxy is a great game anyway. I just hate the symbolism. It's what? Other than Nathan's stale, crusty games, is there any other games you dislike there, Dan?
Sure. Let's talk about Nightfall.
Dan likes all games, so he's having a hard time with it.
No. I've got plenty of hate to dish out. Nightfall is a deck building game from Bandai. I think it came out in 2011. It's a pretty early deck builder. It's actually got something going on in it that was unique and actually good. It's got this weird like chain mechanic. So when you play a card, the card has a color indicator on it, and that allows opponents to play a card that also has that indicator. You're playing personalities, and you're using those personalities to attack and defend each other. At the end of the game, you basically count up how many wound cards are left in your deck, and the person with the least amount is the winner. Got a lot of expansions over its short tenure, but it didn't do the deck building part too well. The theme was what killed it for me, by the way. So in this game, there's vampires and werewolves and human hunters in a three-way free-for-all, and there's no limitations on what you can add to your deck. If there's a vampire card available to be purchased, you can add that vampire to deck, even though the rest of your deck is werewolves.
So there's like no thematic tie. You're just like, yeah, it's a card.
You felt like you were attacking other players for sure, but like this world that they created for this game didn't really click with me.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Vampires were overrated at the point in time that I played it, so that might have had something to do with it.
There's been a lot of vampire games. They're coming back with Vampire the Masquerade, like everybody making games from it. Seems to be like at least 4 or 5 games coming out this year with it. It's probably the same thing will happen again.
Well, hopefully not. I don't mind the Universal game. Looks cool, so hopefully they go more that route.
I'm going to talk about a game that I know people like, that I know a lot of my friends like too, but I think it's not a game.
Oh.
I think it's an activity. This is definitely an activity. In fact, I am so offended with the fact that it thinks it's multiplayer, and that is Dungeon Roll. In Dungeon Roll, you're delving into a dungeon, and you're trying to reach the highest level you can when gaining the most points, or loot. And the person with the most points at the end wins. Like, that sounds cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on your turn, there is 0 player interaction. The only thing the game does to elicit another player is the player rolls the enemy dice that you have to defeat per level. So you're taking your dice pool and the asymmetric power that you got from the hero you chose and trying to mitigate the dice that are out there and get rid of them so you can keep going up levels and push your luck. Because you're trying not to bust. If you can't defeat the level on you, you don't get any points that round. So the only thing the players actually gives you at all is a point amount that you're trying to exceed so you can win. But you can eliminate the other players simply by just saying, hey, I need to make more points than I did previously, or in the back of the book it actually tells you like what level you get. Like you can be like novice, super adventurer, or the greatest person ever, and it has the points in the back. So you can just aim for those. All in all though, if it was just solo, it would be okay. The adding of the other players really what destroyed it for me because there's absolutely no need for them. Everyone could actually have their own copy of Dungeon Roll and just play it. It's about the same idea as Tenzi, where you just roll 10 dice until you get 10 of the same number. It's not a multiplayer game. I don't think there's any argument for it to be a multiplayer game, but as a solo experience where you're trying to like just get scores and figure out how to do it best with the dice you're given, maybe. I don't know. What do you think, Dan? I know you've played that game.
I have, and it's actually a pretty good seller at my store. So I'll step up to the plate here. Dungeon Roll is a push-your-luck dice roller, and the player interaction is in the race. Victory points are public, so you can see how well the person did before you and be like, oh man, I got to do at least reasonably well compared to that, because you play 3 times around the table before the game closes.
And without that, you're just gone on clever game where you just play by yourself and try to get like the highest score possible.
The push your luck element of the game pushes people to push their luck. And if they make it, then they luck out. If they don't make it, they probably are left behind.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people like it. the powers that you get, they actually have lots of packs so you can like mix up hero powers. They have levels on the heroes too, so like if you're really good at the game, you can give the really good heroes to the novice, and then you can take the harder hero to try to balance it out too and give yourself a challenge. So there is some to it, but like I said, it wasn't for me.
The unique player powers make the game more interesting. I'm not sure if I would play it without him.
Can you? I don't think you can.
I know that the game has like booster pack sized expansion that include extra heroes. Whether some come in the base set, I don't know off the top of my head.
The ones in the base set were all different too. The ones with the expansions, they had more like unique heroes. In the base set, it was just your like fighter, mage, blah blah blah.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
They all had different powers.
I have a game to talk about that's guaranteed to offend somebody at the table, if not everybody at the table.
Yeah. Well, you like Magic Mage, so your whole tastes are just gone, and I can't even look at you anymore.
Well, I can guarantee you guys wouldn't like this either. In fact, this game would probably get James killed.
Is it diplomacy?
No, it's called Battle of the Sexes. And the whole point of this game is the men are on one side, the women are on the other side.
I think you're breaking our modern game rule, but go ahead.
It is actually a modern game. It doesn't feel like it, doesn't look like it, but it is actually relatively modern. But the whole point of this game is women have to draw from their deck of cards for questions to ask the men and vice versa, and they're all extremely sexist. All the women cards are about cooking and flowers, and men's cards are like history and science and literature. You know, in a household like James's where it's almost all women, he would not do well in this game.
I have an odd feeling that I do really well at answering the female questions. 'Cause I like cooking.
It sounds like it's something out of time, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you have a publication date on that one, or?
It's going to be like 1980.
Let me look it up real quick.
Okay.
2000, actually, I don't think it's modern. I think that's antique.
My Jungle Speed was from 97, so 2000 is old.
Yeah, no, I saw that.
It's 2001, so it's kind of pushing it as far as modern, but it's after the 2000s. This is a game that should not exist after the 2000s.
Maybe. I could give you that, but there's a lot of games that shouldn't exist that get printed every year.
Yeah, that's true.
You just go to Target or Walmart and you can see the dumbest games ever created are there. And they have some good ones, but I mean, there's a lot of really bad ones there.
Fair. I'm going to go ahead and bash another one if you guys don't mind.
All right, go for it.
I'm going to bash a game that does do well in the store because I previously defended Dungeon Roll, and I think this is only fair.
That is only fair.
So I'm going to bash Munchkin the card game from Steve Jackson.
Oh, I just like that too.
All right, well, at least we're all agreed.
Yep.
Munchkin is, of course, a card game, and it's about a D&D-esque scenario where you bust open doors and fight monsters, and the first person to hit level 10 wins, and you raise your level by successfully defeating monsters. You also draw treasure cards when you successfully defeat monsters, and those give you additional helmets and swords and shields and boots and all sorts of gear stuff to help you, well, kill more monsters. The economy of the game, if you even want to call it that, is definitely a rich gets richer. That's not my problem. The problem is that Munchkin has this actually kind of cute, tongue-in-cheek humor about the D&D genre that wears off relatively fast. It also has that element that gets old reasonably quickly. So Munchkin as a property fights this by releasing a new Munchkin or a new Munchkin expansion probably several times a year.
Yeah, for everything you could ever think of, there's a Munchkin game.
Yeah. There's a Munchkin Pathfinder, a Munchkin X-Cop, and there's a Munchkin Rick and Morty, and there's a Munchkin...
Basically, the person that wins is the last person to have everyone run out of Take That cards. You just won because no one has Take That cards.
Right, that's the flow of the game, is someone makes a move to win, they inevitably get beaten down because no one's used Take That cards yet. And then the second or third person to make the attempt usually makes it because at that point, people have exhausted their options to stop them.
Yeah, and it actually could take a bit to stop someone, too. It gets into a game I just like that's the same idea, but I didn't like Kill Dr. Lucky either for the same reason.
We just played that at Beer and Board Games night at Butler Brewery.
Which was really fun.
The night itself was great. I could smell the distaste, though, from where I was sitting from you.
That, and I didn't like Bert's Gambit either, but I did like Bonanza.
So you can chalk Bonanza. Bonanza is the game I like.
Overall, though, the night was great. That was a great board game meetup. I like playing games with anybody, really. But I did get that Munchkin feel with Kill Dr. Lucky.
It has that same take that element where the first couple of attempts on Dr. Lucky will fail because people are willing and able to discard the green clover cards that stop him from dying. But each time you fail to kill Dr. Lucky, you gain a spite, which is basically a +1 on your next attempt. So someone will get it eventually because the green luck cards will run out, and or someone will just have like +5 spite and it'll be unstoppable.
The spite thing was the only thing I thought that I would be willing to play it again with. Like, if they would have that mechanism in Munchkin, it might be slightly better.
I hope it at least doesn't have the rule in Munchkin that I absolutely hate, where it says, if you don't understand a rule, make up your own.
Well, the other thing that's bad about Munchkin is the random monsters, too. At least in Kill Dr. Lucky, you know where he's going to go. You know what's going to happen. So you don't have, like, to accidentally run into the level 20 plutonium dragon or whatever, where you can't run away from him because you're going to lose 5 levels. And no one will help you because you were winning.
That's Munchkin in a nutshell. Yep.
Yeah.
I have a game that I have to say on this one, Tom Vassell was very, very wrong.
Tom Vassel's never wrong. You're wrong.
Tom Vassell is often wrong. I hate to break it to you.
What? You guys are destroying my image of reality. I don't know what to believe anymore.
This is a game that Tom Vassell seems to really like, even though very few other people do, and that's Police Precinct.
Okay, so this is a previous own for me, but go ahead.
Now, Police Precinct is in that line of painfully difficult cooperative games. The version I have came with a few promo cards and expansions, and we quickly realized we have to take those cards out. One of these expansion cards, every turn it would add more rioters if you don't defeat it. It's like every time this card came up, we felt if we don't deal with this turn, we lose. But we can't afford to do that this turn because we have all these other things to take care of. So it's like, we just lose. And there's a number of cards in this game that pretty much as soon as these cards come out, if it's early in the game especially, you've just lost. Such a hard game where luck is very important. And it's a long game.
Since I have played this game, I guess I'll chime in. It is a previous own, like I previously said, and we also didn't like it. Basically, the reason why we got rid of it is the co-op seemed totally off to me. We would set up the game and play through the scenario, and basically there was no middle ground. It was either a cakewalk or impossible.
Yeah.
And the game had a pretty cool theme. Mm-hmm. You were police officers trying to solve this murder, and you could lose by the murderer escaping the city. That was like the big loss condition that you had to keep your eye on. But there were other ways that you could definitely go down the toilet as well. And we never had a game that I felt was at the right difficulty level. It was either, oh, well, that was too easy, or, man, this setup was just impossible.
Fire and Rescue also had that issue a bit, but I thought that one worked slightly better, and you could actually set the difficulty a little bit on that one.
Flashpoint Fire Rescue? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, Flashpoint Fire Rescue. That's definitely can be a tough game, and it can be frustrating, but you can also set the difficulty lower, so it's passable.
I don't know if you ever played Samurai Spirit.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Mm-hmm.
So Samurai Spirit is a 100% cooperative game, where basically you play as samurai and you're trying to protect your village from a horde of invading people. And they all have different symbols on them and they do different things. But each of your samurai have asymmetric powers. And at your turn, you try to mitigate a deck of cards that are set for each round. You have to determine whether you're going to take this guy, and you have 3 different symbols on your left board, and you have a damage board. The symbols represent people, and they could be on the bad guy that flips. And you can pick, if it has that symbol, to put it in one of those slots, and you can only have one. Or you can take the damage value and slip it on your thing. If you didn't cover those 3 different symbols, the hat means take a damage, I think, and that house means that one of the fences burn or the building burns, and the people means that one of the people die. So you want to get those covered because there's only a certain amount of people in this village before you lose the game. And the right side during the game, when you take the damage, if you go over your damage, you're out of the round. and you burn a fence or whatever, or house. If you hit exactly, then you get to fire off the superpower of your character. And also the other way you can lose is if you take 3 wounds. So these cards also have long-lasting effects, and some of them are every turn you get a wound if you don't cover over this damage card, or your neighbor has to draw an extra card, or the card you draw goes to your neighbor. It's all sorts of nasty stuff. The game concept is really good. The game itself, like the mechanism stuff, makes a really good puzzle. But the problem is there's nothing really for you to do on your turn. You only have like 1 or 2 choices that make any sense during your turn. So it really feels like the game plays itself too much. So even though you have all these really cool superpowers and you have all these things on here, you really don't have choices on your turn. When you draw that card, there's really only one thing that you should do that's correct. It doesn't feel like you're actually doing anything on your turn other than drawing a card and putting it where it obviously should go. I like the idea of the game, and I like the fact that it presents a really cool puzzle, but when it actually gets going into the turns and stuff, the puzzle just disappears because you just have to do that thing that you could do something dumb, but it's obvious what you need to do. Everyone's like, yes, I've never played Samurai Spirit.
Exactly.
I've read up on what the game is and what it does.
The same core concept is executed a lot better with a game called The Grizzled, where you actually have to make a choice on your turn that could be several different things. Grizzled, you have no idea what other people have, and they can't talk to you about it. So there's a lot of decision-making in Grizzled that doesn't exist in Samurai Spirit.
The Grizzled is one of the few extremely difficult games that I actually do enjoy. They say you win like 10% of the games, I believe.
Yeah, we got pretty good at it, but there's different levels.
Yeah.
And then we just started playing the expansion, which is really, really good. I don't know if you've ever played either of those.
The Grizzled, I've done it twice through Board Game Club. Of course, we lost both times. I thought it interestingly enough, it's basically anti-set collection, which I found intriguing.
Yeah, it's definitely anti-set collection. And it's definitely a game I think you have to pay like at least 12 or more times before you actually get to the point where you could legitimately have a really good chance of winning. You could still lose knowing what you're doing. But there's a whole big mechanism in it that is really hard to get around, like when you actually want to die, but when you actually want to lose that round. So you can purposely lose the round, and it's actually a good thing. Sometimes.
Yeah, I think I could see that.
Playing a lot of games, you can really see, I need to get rid of this super horrible card. This is the time to get rid of it. I know we're going to lose, but one guy retreated for support. So if I lose right now, we don't have to worry about tying support and not getting it. Support, what happens when you get support? You get rid of hard knocks, which are lingering bad effects during the game that make each round harder. Or you can flip the person back over. They have a thing called a charm, and they can get rid of a card on the row that you're trying not to collect sets in. It's fun. You do have to play it a lot, though. So that might turn a lot of people off. And it's hard. Not Robinson Crusoe hard, though. That's a different level.
You actually can win this one.
Yeah. So is everyone's anger abating, or is there more games that you just missed?
I think I've got 2 or 3 more on my list if you wanted me to do
I
a
got a
different
couple
one.
more I can talk about too, if you want. So if you want, Dan, you want to go?
Let's go with Dan here. What game do you also dislike?
All right, well, I'm going to roast what is potentially a sacred cow among some gamers.
Oh, sacred cows taste delicious.
Yeah, I'm going to name Manhattan Project from Minion Games.
All right, podcast over. Nope. No, go ahead.
I only played this a couple times, maybe 3 or 4, but I found the pacing of the game to be just off. And maybe this was groupthink, but inevitably we found that everyone gets to the point where your optimal play is to place your workers and then immediately on the next recall workers, and just to do a 2-step repeat ad nauseum. I puzzled over this for a while away from the game, trying to think, no, that can't be right. Taking 1 turn off every 3 turns has got to be better. But I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I could see that. That same idea also is why I hate another game that I love the designer for, and he is one of the greatest designers ever. I hate Charterstone. I super hate Charterstone.
I think we've talked enough about this one, though. Unless Dan wants to add something.
Yeah, I won't get into depth of it. Just to recap, Charterstone is a legacy worker placement game. And I love worker placement games. But take a worker placement game that's, in my opinion, the most intro Euro game possible. And throughout the game, it doesn't actually add any more real mechanisms to it. So it's sort of just like a very painful 12-episode intro to a Euro game. And it has that same mechanism where eventually it gets to the point where you just put your workers down, you return your workers. You put your workers down, you return your workers. Blah.
Yeah, and we talked about this in the other episode. Is like, I enjoyed it, but I did play it in a 3-player game, and I can see where a lot of his problems might have become specifically from having more players.
Have you played Charterstone, Dan?
I have not. I was interested in it because worker placement is also one of my cornerstones, but I couldn't justify acquiring it because I'm not sure if I could commit to a 12-game session. Some of the games in my collection I've played less than 12 times and then gotten rid of,
Yeah.
so...
If you really like Euros, you're into that like complex decision making. I don't think Charterstone has it. And especially if you don't think you can get a group together for that many games, nah. But Jamie Stegmaier and Stonemeyer Games put out really good games. You saw about that Tapestry game, right? The Civ building Tapestry game. Oh my gosh, does that look awesome? Oh wait, no, sorry. This is games we dislike. Never mind.
All right. Let's not gush over the game that's only just been announced and hasn't released yet. I am hopefully optimistic.
Oh, me too.
But I am waiting for reviews.
And maybe it'll be the better version of Civilization.
I hope and I pray, sir.
Dan, I know you do like Catan.
Yes.
And I'm not going to hate on that game in particular.
I know you like Catan. I'm just not going to talk about it.
Have you ever played the Catan card game?
I have not played the Catan card game, or the dice game for that matter, but...
I think most people by now know what Catan is. It's just, resource gathering. You roll dice to see what resources you get every turn. And the Catan card game is essentially the same thing with cards, and it's 2-player only, except for the fact that by the second turn, you already know who's going to win, and you're only a third of the way through the game.
Catan the card game is like if they took Catan and made it worse. Catan the dice game is like they took Catan the card game and made it even worse.
They did release a newer edition of it that they supposedly fixed a lot of the issues, but I have yet to play that one, and I am very doubtful.
Don't trust the PR, huh? Don't blame you.
Not at all. Dan, what else you got?
I got one more good one, I guess, so we might as well mention it. I'm going to talk about another game by Bandai called Uncharted. So Uncharted is effectively a tableau building game. On your turn, you can play a card to the table, active card that's already there, take 2 of these actions, and you just pass it to the next player, and then take options. It keeps on going until everyone is done taking actions. And then, all the cards untap or unactivate for the next round. So the point of the game is there are these treasure cards in the middle of the table that are worth victory points. Put search tokens on them to collect them. There is an advantage in the game to having this overly large, unwieldy board. Because you can keep taking actions until everyone's passed, you basically want as many cards on the table as possible, which is often a mess. And then the search tokens that you put on these treasure cards are sort of like a mini area control game. Say there's a card that needs 6 tokens. That can be just 6 of yours, or it could be 3 of yours, say 2 of Nathan's and 1 of mine, and that would trigger it being scored, and it would go to whoever has the most. There are also enemy cards in the game that you pretty much have to attack. I believe the enemy cards lock out certain options as long as they're there. You need to generate enough combat power to take them out. So if a card takes 6 combat power, you have to find some way to make 6 combat power to take it out. If you can't make 6, you can't do anything to it.
Is that themed after Uncharted the video game, or is that just its own thing?
Yep, it is Uncharted the video game. There is a thematic disconnect there, too. Yeah, you're trying to recover these artifacts, and that's on theme, but some of the individual cards are off. Like the card titled Run has the effect of draw a card. So, yeah, explain that one to me.
You're running so fast, you get resources.
Or ideas, or whatever cards are supposed to even represent, right?
They're probably like running on their treadmill design the game, like, I get my best ideas when I run. Let's make it a card. You get a card when you run. I don't know.
Well, I haven't played this, but the full title raises a red flag for me, and that's Uncharted the board game. Anything that follows with the board game in the title is a huge red flag to me.
I don't want to make generalizations about IP games from Asian designers, but this is an IP game from an Asian designer.
The art looks pretty spot on for the video game.
Yeah.
Sounds like almost an IP grab.
I found a thematic disconnect in the cards. Growing your board as wide as possible seemed to be the way to go, which was very awkward because effectively all of these cards can only do like 4 things: manipulate treasure tokens, manipulate card draws, generate combat, and I forget what the 4th thing was.
BGG agrees with you too because it's ranked. What do you think its rank is? Just guess.
I'm sorry, is it in the top 5,000 or not?
Take a guess. What do you think the number is? Let's see which one of these is closest without going over.
Oh, the closest without going over.
Closest without going over.
Price of right strategy. All right. I actually think it might be higher than 5,000 because there's a lot of games in the BGG database after all. So
there is.
I'll go.
Oh, wait. Oh, wait. I'll help you out. Let's see what Monopoly's rated.
I think that's 11,000 something.
Monopoly is rated 17,563. So if Monopoly is rated 17,563, what is Uncharted, the board game rated?
I'm gonna go with 4,200.
All right, Nathan?
I already pulled it up as soon as he mentioned it, so I was like, I can't guess.
You don't understand the point of this game. Mr. I Like Magic Maze.
Well, I didn't know you were going to play this game when I pulled it up.
It's 3,571. It's still horrible, but not catastrophic.
I'm going to break your world some more, James.
Right.
BGG ratings are not the be-all and end-all of gaming.
You guys are just blasphemy. I don't even know what.
BGG ratings are created by the user community, and that user community has a bias.
Is perfect.
Has a bias.
What?
A big one. Yeah.
I can't believe these words.
So, are we done venting, gentlemen? Have we wrought our righteous anger?
I think I'm feeling pretty good now. I mean, I could go on forever because there's tons of games. But there's also tons of good games, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I feel better when I'm being enthusiastic about games than I'm hating on them, for sure.
I do really love like a game that I'm almost expecting it to be bad, and then it ends up being good. I actually have a couple games that just came in that I'm hoping are going to fall in that category. I got Prosperity that came in, which is like $60 game marked down to $10. So it was hugely discounted, hugely unpopular, but it actually looked good to me. So we'll see.
While we're still talking about bad games, have either of you gentlemen ever played a game ironically? Like, oh my god, this is a terrible game, I must play it.
Oh, actually, have I?
That is kind of why I bought Kahlua, where you're killing off worshippers.
I feel that's the same way every time I play Dixit. Every time I play Dixit, this game is so horrible, I'm just going to play it. You guys are like, I like Dixit. I do not like Dixit. Dixit. I can't even say it. So angry. Horrible game.
I have not played it myself. Yeah, but it's in the same bucket as Apples to Apples, yeah, in many ways.
Yes, same thing. It is slightly step above Apples to Apples. You just have players put their chits on something, and whatever they voted for is it. So you don't have the person that said the phrase gets to pick which one they like the best. But it's still horrible. How about you, Dan? Have you ever played a game that was so horrible you're like, I have to play this?
I've played games that I was like, oh. I usually do actually give them a second shot because I feel like I missed something the first time around. Yeah. Like, how could this game be so terrible? But all the games on my list I played at least a few times before I was like, nope, crossing that off. Getting rid of it.
I'm actually wondering if The Great Dalmudi would fall under that.
Oh, yeah, it is actually a horrible game that is, every part of it's horrible. But I love playing it. So I don't know if you've ever played The Great Dalmudi before, Dan?
It's not ringing a bell.
But think of a trick-taking game where 2 players have the advantage over everyone else. And 2 players have a disadvantage where they can almost never win.
Do these players remain the same?
A lot of times, yes. So in The Great Dalmudi, there is The Great Dalmudi, the Lesser Dalmudi, merchants, the lesser peon, and the peon. The peon has to give the 2 lowest, which the lowest number wins a trick, the 2 lowest cards to the Greater Dalmudi. And the Greater Dalmudi can give any 2 cards they want to the peon. And the Lesser Dalmudi gets the best card from the lesser peon, and they give their worst card to the peon. And the merchants keep their cards, if there is even merchants in the game. First person out becomes the Great Dalmudi, the second person out becomes the Lesser Dalmudi, and so on. But in the majority of the games, people stay where they're at.
Interesting.
So it sounds horrible, right? Because it is.
It sounds horrible. Like there isn't a mechanism to mix it up.
There is a rare case where it can happen if you get 2 jesters you can call no taxation, and then everyone keeps their cards. But it doesn't normally happen very often. So the game sounds horrible, and actually is horrible, but it is a lot of fun. So yes, that's a ironic game there. It's also designed by Richard Garfield, too.
Oh my.
Yes, which is what got me playing the game, because I read the rules to it, and I'm like, this is horrible. This is the worst game ever. I'm like, I'm just going to play it because Richard Garfield made it. And it's fun. I guess we're all low-key now, all feeling a lot better, getting ready for all that hate mail.
I don't think there was too many sacred cows in there. Some people might consider Munchkin one.
I think people that play Munchkin know it's a horrible game.
I think people who play Munchkin know what kind of game they're getting into.
Yeah.
I actually think it was super smart for Steve Jackson to make a Munchkin collectible card game, because the fact that they can use that model to continuously add new content means it gets stale a lot less frequently.
Yeah, and it caught me because Eric Lang designed it, so I have decks of it.
Yeah. I haven't tried the collectible card game at all. Does it play similarly enough to regular Munchkin?
No.
Oh, okay.
The idea is the same, but the gameplay is completely different.
Fair enough.
It is different. It is, I think, better than Munchkin. It's just still not good. And I do like Eric Lang. I like almost everything he does, which he does a lot of CCGs. He did Quarriors, and I think he did Dice Masters, too. I'm 99% sure I'm correct. The other 1% is completely wrong, though. Yes, Eric M. Lang, along with Mike Elliott, designed Dice Masters. He also designed Quarriors, which is a great collectible game. I think it sort of runs out of variety. I know they use new words and stuff, but that game pretty much petering out for the store.
I know they do still make new Dice Masters periodically, because I see advertisements for it in my emails, but it's been a while since the store has chosen to get anything in for it. It's fallen on the wayside for us.
I think they have a 40K set coming out.
Yeah.
After a while, it's just all the same.
There's already been a 40K set in the past, if I'm not mistaken, and there's been D&D sets and a set based on Yu-Gi-Oh! And all sorts of nonsense. What can I say? WizKids has access to a lot of licenses.
They do have a lot of IPs, and they do use them a lot. Oh man, we got to talk about like new stuff too, like the Funko brand games and stuff like that later.
Funkoverse.
Funkoverse, yeah, the Funkoverse games.
I actually did check that out because we order a lot of pops, and we ordered them directly from Funko. They were coming out with something that they labeled a strategy game. Was particularly interesting to me. And I watched a couple videos about rules overview, and I'm like, okay, this looks like a pretty light beat-em-up miniatures game, really.
They're going to have a whole bunch of different ones, but I want like Golden Girls versus Harry Potter universe.
The mix-up factor, I think, is going to be real.
Different.
I wouldn't mind Rick and Morty.
They have Rick and Morty on there. They have a lot. I don't know much about Funko. Are the little Funko Pops that come with this game like already sold?
There's like normal-sized ones, which are, I think, maybe 6-inch figures, or at least the box is about that big, right? They do make mini pops. They usually put them out in like little blind boxes, countertop displays. But the ones inside these games look actually a little bit bigger than those mini pops. They look like Hobbit size compared to the regular pops. They're about half the tall.
Wonder if people are just going to buy the games just for the Funko Pops like they buy Funko Pops.
You see, that's the awkward thing about them. When I was looking at them for the store, I was like trying to figure out, we're going to want some of these because they're pops. But are we going to be stuck in a situation where the people who want them for pops aren't going to be willing to pay the price tag for 2 small pops? And the people who are into board games aren't going to be willing to collect them for the other half of the market, I guess, that they're aiming for.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, join our BGG Guild, guild number 2989, or you can join our guild by going to tabletopgamingguild.com/guild. You can also join our Slack channel where we're going to discuss board game related topics and our next podcasts. You can also visit our website, tabletopgamingguild.com, and you can email us at tabletopgamingguild@gmail.com. The Tabletop Gaming Guild podcast is a product of Tabletop Gaming Guild, LLC. All rights reserved. Thanks again for listening.